In a bottomless abyss, a young girl named Erlin was falling, while her older brother watched with desperate eyes, screaming her name at the top of his lungs. He muttered to himself that he would reach her soon, asking her to hold on just a little longer. Signs of exhaustion and panic appeared on the face of the blond young man with violet eyes as he sweated profusely. He saw himself surrounded by monstrous phantoms attacking him, in a state of extreme terror. He was overcome with regret, wishing he had kept running without looking back at that time, and wondered to himself if he would have been able to grab her outstretched hand if he had done so. His thoughts were interrupted by Erlin's voice telling him no, confirming that it was long too late. Her dark phantom materialized before him, placing the blame entirely on him, telling him that everything happening was his fault, and that if it weren't for his foolish actions in the past, he wouldn't be in this hellish place. The scene shifted to a luminous forest where a woman stood behind the young man, walking hand in hand with a small child. The young man looked at an old man groaning in pain, then his groans escalated into a deafening scream. An old man with savage red eyes was rushing towards him, screaming for his blood. Calmly, the young man dodged the crazed man's attack to the side, then delivered a swift blow to his neck, causing the man to scream in pain. At that moment, the young man called out to a creature named Medini, and a faint beep sound was heard. A small, owl-like creature emitting light appeared, while the man continued to scream. Before his body fell to the ground with a thud, the young man thought to himself that, as expected, this wasn't the right time either. The young man, known as the Alchemist Eden, began to explain the situation. He explained that the man, a rare mushroom collector, had been attacked by a parasite. This parasite, usually found in wetlands, controls its host through a leech-like tail, causing the host to feel an overwhelming urge to suck blood, which explains his red eyes and the appearance of fangs. Eden reassured the woman that the man would be fine now that the parasite had been detached from his body. The woman thanked him and told him she would give him the promised reward immediately. Eden initially refused the reward, saying it was all right, but mentioned he had just one question. But the woman insisted he take it, explaining that the amount was exactly 10 million, and thus they would owe him nothing. Eden reluctantly took the heavy bag of money, realizing she didn't harbor good feelings for him. He thought that this huge sum on the outskirts of the kingdom of Cretio was probably equivalent to a full year's salary. Nevertheless, he resolved that he must do what he had to do. Eden asked the woman if she had heard of similar incidents before, giving an example of a race like vampires. As soon as he mentioned the word vampire, Eden was struck in the neck. The woman realized what she had done and was shocked by her action, noting to herself that she had flinched instinctively upon hearing the word. As Eden trembled in pain, he asked her in astonishment what kind of exercises she usually does, and a notification appeared stating, Day 2601, palm strike, 296th time. He thought that this was still okay, then told his little companion that they had another place to go, so they should hurry. Later, he saw a small child dressed as a vampire joyfully declaring that he was a vampire. Eden reassured the old woman that the little boy had no other problems, explaining that he was imitating villains because he admired them, and advised him to be careful. Then the woman threw a small bag on the ground in front of him, saying this was the promised reward. She told him in a sharp tone that with this arrangement they considered themselves to have received no help from him, and asked if he understood, to which he replied in the affirmative with his head bowed. The woman scolded the child, named Lucy, for his behavior and for imitating vampires, expressing her regret that because of this situation she couldn't call the knights and had to rely on bad people for her requests. Eden, smiling, took advantage of the situation and asked the woman again if she had heard any stories or rumors about vampires. But he suddenly started coughing up blood as he received a violent punch from the woman. A system window appeared before him indicating Day 2602 of vampire hunting, fist punch, 176th time. The woman's reaction was extremely violent, and she questioned how these traitors dared to mention the name of vampires. She then ordered Lucy to go and shouted that vampires must be exterminated, making Eden wonder to himself why everyone's reactions were so exaggerated. Memories of the bad treatment he received flashed through his mind. Someone had spat on his foot once. Another time villagers threatened him with a shovel, and the knights had chased him just for reporting vampire sightings. Eden felt exhausted and clutched his chest, realizing his body wouldn't hold out much longer if things continued this way. He lamented that everyone's reaction was exaggerated just because he mentioned the name, wishing they had at least listened to him a little. He then turned to his little companion, Medini, assuring her that he didn't intend to eat anyone. Suddenly, another boy with green hair appeared, hugging Medini, and reminded Eden that he had told him before he would follow him to the end. Eden was surprised by his appearance and asked him how he got here again. Eden wondered how the boy managed to follow him all this way from his village, and the boy confidently replied that he knew the area around his village like the back of his hand and could follow him wherever he went. The boy then bowed before him, begging him to accept him as his disciple, declaring his desire to become a super alchemist like Eden. Eden was puzzled as to where the boy had heard this, and the boy explained that he had read about him in last month's Alchemy magazine, which included an exclusive article about Eden Isaac, one of the 5 super alchemists, making Eden curse that press interview in his mind. Eden remembered agreeing to the interview because they promised him valuable information, but all he got was a tip on how to make Medini's skin glow, describing them to himself as scammers. The boy continued his pleas, insisting he would do anything he asked in exchange for being accepted as a disciple. Eden flatly refused his request, telling him that if he wanted to become an alchemist, he should go to the Oracle Academy in the center of the Kingdom of Cretio to learn the basics. But the boy argued that life is a hands-on experience, and if he became Eden's disciple, he would learn faster and be able to find his own style of alchemy. The boy insisted he had been ready for a long time, so Eden sat down with him and skeptically asked him how much he knew about alchemy. The boy confidently replied that he had already finished understanding the origins of alchemy and basic sciences from magazines, and that he had prepared well by learning basic martial arts like climbing trees quickly. He added that all he needed was to obtain the ether, which is called the source of alchemy, to believe he could practice basic alchemy. Eden was impressed by the boy's knowledge of the ether's existence, calling it amazing. Eden confirmed that what the boy said was not impossible, as the ether is the infinite and sole source of energy. Eden revealed that they possess most of the ether on the continent of Eden, which excited the boy who felt his chance had come. But Eden followed up his words by raising one finger, explaining that of course, there was one problem. Eden explained that the problem is that all the existing ether is used to keep the city of alchemy floating in the sky, and it is said to be used to maintain the acta. As a result, the amount of ether that alchemists possess is 0. And although they understand the system and laws of the world a little more than others, they are no different from ordinary people. The boy asked in amazement how Eden could use alchemy then, believing it to be impossible. Eden replied that they made a contract. He explained that they make this contract, risking their lives, to generate a force equivalent to the power of ether. It is known that pure life force can produce ether-like energy. Based on this fact, they use their own lives as the price for using their alchemy. For this reason, alchemists' wages are very high, because they literally fight using their souls. Eden added that the average lifespan of an alchemist is half that of a normal human, and that dying at a young age is common among them. They are also sent to remote places for the purpose of knowledge and exploration, and they must regularly fulfill requests. He told him that this is the truth that cannot be learned from books, and asked him again if he still wished to become an alchemist after all this. The boy answered in the affirmative without hesitation, and reminded him that he was the alchemist who saved their village. He recounted how a plague had spread in their village, causing bodies to suddenly wither, and despite their pleas for help, all the neighboring villages turned their backs on them. Even the knights who protect the kingdom refused to send support, claiming the village was too remote. Just when everyone thought it was the end, the alchemist appeared like a savior and solved the problem. The boy admitted that the villagers didn't thank him, but rather threw money at him and ordered him to leave, but he insisted that it was different for him. Eden commented that the fact of their betrayal of humanity would not change, even after a long time. He began to narrate a historical story that the boy might have read about in books. 200 years ago, vampires began the worst event in the history of the continent of Eden, the War of the Races. Within just 1 week, 70% of humans disappeared, like many other races. People began desperately searching for alchemists, but the alchemists refused them, claiming they were still incomplete. They were content to watch the horrific scene from the sky, wishing for a miracle like everyone else. Eden continued that a miracle did indeed happen, as the kingdom found a power called the Blessing of Sisu, and with this power, the knights were able to defeat the vampires. Peace returned to Eden, but the traitorous alchemists are still hated by the people to this day. The boy interrupted him, saying that even his 4-year-old brother knows that story, and that what he wants to talk about is something from the distant past, and now they need reconciliation and interaction. Suddenly, Eden stood up abruptly, which surprised the boy, and told him that he must leave now, expressing that the conversation had been enjoyable after a long time. Then Eden smiled and told the boy he would see him later in the Acta. A few moments later, the boy heard a massive explosion and wondered with concern if Eden had also heard it, noting that something big seemed to have happened. Meanwhile, Eden had already taken off. Realizing the explosion came from a specific direction, he had a strong feeling that this time it might be related to a real vampire, as the information he had about a bipedal creature that kills by sucking blood matched. He hoped his long search would finally pay off, and he prepared for battle, summoning his companion Medini and readying his alchemical pistol. Eden quickly moved towards the source of the sound, but he noticed that the closer he got, the air became strangely colder. He suddenly stopped, shocked by the scene before him, where the ground was covered with the remains of strange, torn-apart monsters. Medini began to emit a repeated warning sound, making Eden wonder if someone else was in the area. Suddenly, a huge snake-like monster attacked him from the ice, but Eden managed to stop the attack, using an alchemical ability to slow time. Eden wondered how a blood snake could be in this place. as this creature is supposed to live only in the Nivma desert. Despite not understanding the situation, he decided he couldn't miss the opportunity to get such a valuable sample. Considering himself lucky for this discovery, he aimed his pistol and fired at the creature, but was surprised to find another person still alive. Eden realized it would be a headache to deal with this situation. Before a large group of blood snakes attacked him from all directions, he used an alchemical ability to slow time and unleashed the skill on all the snakes around him. The blood snakes froze in place, unable to move. Eden noted that since there were many enemies this time, he could move more freely, but it was already too late. He used the phantom shot alchemical technique and fired into the air, eliminating all the snakes at once. He concluded that the rumors he had been hearing were because of these creatures. After the battle ended, he checked on the condition of the other person who was injured and asked with concern if he was still alive. As he was preparing to give him medicine, the man interrupted him to say there was no need, because he was going to die soon anyway. Eden continued his conversation with the mysterious man, who turned out to be another alchemist wearing a frozen white coat and suffering from severe injuries. Eden recognized the tool the other alchemist was holding in his hand, wondering if it was the seal of life. The dying man told him he would know if he opened it. Indeed, when Eden opened the seal, he confirmed that it belonged to an alchemist who came before him, and that he had surpassed the hour of death. The seal of life is an essential tool for alchemists, created to prevent the reckless use of alchemy, as the time recorded on it freezes when alchemy is used. When the allowed limit is exceeded, the seal enters a state of surpassing the hour of death, which represents the critical time between life and death. Looking at the seal, Eden deduced that the alchemist before him had faced a large number of blood snakes, and that he was a mid-level alchemist like himself, belonging to the Frost Alchemy group, Nix Elo. The dying alchemist spoke with difficulty, calling Eden by his full name, Eden Isaac, confirming that he was the alchemist of time. The man expressed his astonishment at seeing Eden's alchemy for himself, describing the ability to stop an opponent's time as a power that transcends the essence of nature. He explained that he now understood why they were called super alchemists. He recounted how the place was a complete war zone, and how the blood snakes had chased him so unexpectedly that he couldn't check his seal of life in time, leading him to overuse his alchemy. The man sighed regretfully, saying his goal was to die of old age, the dream of every alchemist, but now he was dying for the most common reason among them. He confessed that the feeling overwhelming him was emptiness more than sadness. Considering the use of life as a raw material their cursed fate, Eden asked him if he had any last wishes. The man replied that he had no specific wish, as he was always prepared for this fate, but he felt curious, telling Eden that he was a special being among them, and that a different end awaited him, before taking his last breath. After the man's death, Eden noticed a strange blue butterfly hovering around him, and suddenly felt a strong grip on his hand. He heard the voice of the deceased alchemist, Elo, echoing in his mind, telling him to listen carefully. The voice told him of a forest untouched by a single ray of light on the outskirts near the western gate of the kingdom of Cretio, and that deep within that forest, a missing vampire is said to be sleeping. Eden shouted in surprise, wondering why he was being told this so suddenly, and about the immense power he was feeling. Elo's voice warned him to be careful, for inside there was a monster that had transcended death. After the voice and the blue butterflies faded, Eden cried out for Medini. He quickly picked her up and decided he must chase the blue butterfly, believing that the recent event must be connected to it. He took to the air, searching for it, wondering where it was. After hours of fruitless searching, he sat down exhausted, wondering where it could be. As Eden lay on the ground exhausted, Medini told him she had sent a death signal to Acta, so Mr. Elo's matter would be fine. But Eden denied this, insisting he wouldn't report anything until this mission was over. He believed the owner of that blue butterfly surely knew the vampire's location, and although he didn't know how that person knew he was searching for vampires, he decided to trust the information. He looked at a picture of himself with a young girl inside his seal of life, realizing that the work he had been searching for 7 years might finally be accomplished. Elsewhere, strange green butterflies hovered around a lady in a black dress. A man was in the area, crying for help, vowing he would tell no one what happened here or the truth about vampires, and that he wouldn't utter a single word, but a mysterious voice ordered him to be quiet. So quiet that not even the sound of his breath could be heard, after she brutally killed him. Eden arrived at the forest Elo had described, which no ray of light penetrated, finding it exactly as described. Although he felt he had walked into a trap, he had a strong sense that a vampire was waiting for him inside. Eden felt a renewed excitement and energy. This was the first time he had received information in such a strange situation. He asked Medini to light up, asserting that if there was indeed a vampire, this kind of risk was nothing. Eden entered the pitch-black darkness and called out, asking if anyone was there. He walked cautiously, calling out, but there was no reply. He felt it was strange. Although he had wandered for an hour, he hadn't gotten used to the darkness, and felt no sign of life. Suddenly he glimpsed a human foot pass by quickly, and he shouted for Medini, asking if she saw it too. A few moments later, he glimpsed an arm pass by quickly, and he shouted again, certain that it was impossible for a person to be in a forest like this. Suddenly he heard a voice say it had caught him. He turned in astonishment and asked Medini if she heard the voice, but he couldn't find her. He called for her worriedly, wondering what was happening, and suddenly felt something approaching him from behind, and heard a sinister voice telling him it had caught him too, and ordering him to die. In the darkness, Eden was suddenly attacked, but he used the alchemist's skill to stop time, and the sword stopped just before it pierced his neck. He wondered to himself if this was why no one ever made it out of this forest alive. He realized what was attacking him was a headless corpse. At first he thought it was some kind of ghoul, and that he knew how to deal with reanimated corpses, so he planned to throw a cloth from his bag over its face. But the creature was faster and stronger than he expected, and Eden narrowly dodged another attack. He realized this wasn't just a simple ghoul, but a phantom trapped in this place. He deduced that if the body had a vessel of life, the effect of his time alchemy would have been absolute. But this phantom was unaffected. Eden began to ponder the strangeness of the forest itself. No sunlight penetrated it, and despite running, he hadn't stumbled on any rock or tree, leading him to conclude that this place was a constructed space, and he wondered if something was being protected here, which aligned with the rumors of a sleeping vampire nearby. Suddenly the phantom spoke, asking him if he was here to harm that person as well. Eden used his ability to slow time, to ask the phantom if that person he meant was a vampire. He then reassured it that he only wished to meet the person it served, but the phantom angrily refused, questioning how someone like Eden dared to disturb his master's sleep, and promised he would die a more brutal death than anyone else. Eden explained that although 200 years had passed since the War of the Races, humans still considered vampires a source of fear and anxiety, and because of that, the Knights of the Kingdom of Credio were still active, hunting down every surviving vampire. The phantom declared that it still cursed humans, insisting that Lady Anne never wanted the war, but was more afraid than anyone else. Yet she was forced to die just for being a vampire. The phantom described all humans as the same kind of monster. Eden offered his apology for the past, acknowledging that there must have been victims of the war among vampires too. He stressed that this was exactly why he wanted to meet the vampire, and that it wasn't just curiosity. Eden offered the phantom a deal, asking it to let him meet its mistress, Lady Anne. He assured it that he was willing to gladly give his life if that was the price. Eden warned the phantom that the knights would eventually find this place and brutally kill the sleeping Lady Anne, but he pledged to protect her, even if it cost him his life, explaining that this was something he had long wished for. The phantom asked why Eden was so insistent and willing to risk his life. Eden revealed that an alchemist had kidnapped his younger brother after a tragic accident. He explained that this alchemist, named Ivan, was dabbling in forbidden alchemy in an attempt to become a god. Eden admitted he was too weak at the time and couldn't do anything, but things had changed now. Eden plans to obtain vampire blood to gain an immortal body, which would enable him to transcend the limits of alchemy. With this power, he would retrieve his brother and begin his bloody revenge, which is why he needs Lady Anne. The phantom commented that Eden was blinded by the desire for revenge, but it was impressed by his determination and conviction. It decided to give him a chance to prove his resolve. Medini appeared in the phantom's hand, who told Eden that this companion he cherished as a family member, he must kill with a knife. If he did, it would grant him a chance to meet the lady. A few moments later, Eden appeared having stabbed Medini, considering this to prove his seriousness, and demanded to be allowed to meet Lady Anne as promised. The phantom acknowledged that Eden was not deceiving it, and told him he could meet Lady Anne by following a path in the forest. Suddenly, Medini flew towards Eden, making a sound. Eden hugged her and reassured her that everything was fine now, which puzzled the phantom, who wondered how she came back to life after being stabbed with a knife. Eden explained that his friend and assistant, Medini, is a living being created through alchemy. She can be stabbed and killed, but she can also come back to life instantly. Eden announced that he had fulfilled his promise and would now go to meet Lady Anne. The phantom became enraged, believing Eden had tricked it, and vowed to tear him apart and kill him brutally. Eden calmly replied that he did not mean to deceive it, and pointed out that this situation was not urgent for him alone. Eden concluded that the phantom gave him a chance in a situation where it could have easily killed him, which meant the phantom itself had some lingering attachment and a desire to save its mistress. In the end, Eden asked the phantom to entrust him with the task of saving its dying mistress. The phantom acknowledged that Eden had been waiting for this moment just as much as it had. It realized that Eden had understood everything from the beginning. The phantom apologized to its mistress in its thoughts, admitting that despite Eden's deception, it couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope, a hope that this time would be different. Eden walked down the illuminated path the phantom had shown him, and after landing in a spot filled with flowers, he finally found what he was looking for. He saw a woman lying under a large tree, and wondered in shock if this was the monster that had ravaged the land 200 years ago. Eden noticed that the woman was stabbed, with a spear embedded in her chest, and realized this spear was imbued with the power of Sisu, which was the reason she, even as a vampire, couldn't recover. Eden suddenly felt weak and fell to his knees, apologizing to Medini for letting himself lose focus. He told her he couldn't feel his body, but he was happy they had finally found her, as this would bring him closer to Erlen. Eden remembered a distant past when he and his sister were planning a surprise birthday party for a girl named Mary. His sister, Erlen, had figured out his plan because his facial expressions were so obvious, and told him he would definitely be found out this way. She forced him to smile artificially, telling him that way he wouldn't be discovered. Back in the present, Eden smiled artificially, and asked Medini cheerfully if he looked completely comfortable now. Eden looked at the sleeping Lady Anne's face and wondered if this was really a face from 200 years ago, as it was completely different from the image he had imagined. She seemed to him like a completely ordinary person. Eden decided he would know the truth when he woke her, and pulled the embedded spear from her chest. He took out a box containing 2 shiny red pills, explaining that only 2 blood life flowers could be made annually from the essence of alchemy. He remembered the instructions he received to use it when Mary was about to die and blood was flowing from her like a fountain. Eden thought that the current situation was similar to his situation with Mary, but with different feelings. He removed the spear from Lady Anne's chest and placed one of the blood life flower pills into the wound, hoping it would work. Before the girl woke up, he tied her up with ropes. A few moments later, Lady Anne began to regain consciousness. She initially wondered about the sounds she was hearing and who was there. Eden ran to her and asked if she was okay, as she was fully waking up. Lady Anne gradually regained consciousness, wondering where she was, and if she was still alive. She vaguely remembered escaping from somewhere, then was surprised when she realized she was tied up with ropes. Eden reassured her and expressed his happiness that she was alive, explaining he was worried because she hadn't responded for an hour. Then he told her the shocking truth. 200 years had already passed. Eden explained that the War of the Races had ended with humanity's victory, and guessed she might have fallen asleep here while escaping. He justified tying her up with ropes as a precautionary measure, because he only has one life and didn't want to take any risks. He tried to reassure her that he wouldn't do anything strange. Lady Anne took the opportunity and attacked him angrily. Eden quickly bent down to dodge the attack. The lady questioned what he had done to her, and vowed to kill him. She threatened to suck his blood until his body was completely dry. Eden coolly commented on her threat, expressing his happiness to confirm she was a vampire, but realized that dealing with her easily would not be an option. Lady Anne attacked him, screaming, "Die, human!" But Eden used his slow time ability and froze her in place. He calmly asked her to talk, admitting he knew she was angry because of the past, but she refused angrily, calling him an arrogant human, and questioning how he dared to give her orders. Eden regretfully told her that her attempt was futile. He then formally introduced himself, declaring he was Eden Isaac, the Alchemist of Time. He explained to her that he controls time, and as long as a vessel of life remains in a body, he can slow the flow of time for anything. He added that, moreover, if the target was a single person and not many, they wouldn't be able to move a single hair. Then he mocked her a little for her frozen attack pose, pointing out that she looked funny. Lady Anne angrily demanded that Eden release her immediately, asking what he wanted from her. Eden calmly replied, noting that she had finally decided to talk, and suggested they get straight to the point. Eden explained that he wanted to find his younger sister who was kidnapped 8 years ago, and to achieve that, he needed vampire blood. Lady Anne was surprised and asked if this meant he wanted to become a blood servant. Eden confirmed it, explaining that although alchemy is a great power that allowed humans to surpass their limits, it has a physical limitation in the erosion of its user's life. But he had heard that a blood servant could obtain vampire blood and gain an immortal body. Eden stated his need to become stronger than he is now, and that this power was the most necessary and urgent for him. Eden offered Lady Anne a deal. He reminded her that although the War of the Races ended with humanity's victory 200 years ago, the Knights were still determined to kill the surviving vampires. Eden pledged to protect her, and in return, he would get her blood and become the blood servant he wanted. Considering these terms good for both parties, Lady Anne thought about the situation, realizing she had woken up to find the war was lost and 200 years had passed, which she considered the worst possible scenario. When she tried to move, Eden reminded her it was futile, and that time is absolute. Lady Anne agreed to his request, asking him to release her quickly. Eden released her immediately, but she fell to the ground, and Eden worriedly asked if she was okay. But after she was freed, Lady Anne commented that Eden's alchemy was interesting, but that didn't change the fact that he was just a weak human. She wondered how he dared to propose a deal to her, explaining that the position of blood servant is reserved for the strongest warrior, not a trivial position that someone like him could obtain to save his sister. She added that since he wasn't going to kill her, it was pointless for them to waste more energy. She thanked him for saving her, but considered this the end of the line between them, and bid him farewell. In a desperate attempt, Eden stopped her and showed her the Alchemy magazine, in which only the strongest alchemists appear, pointing out that it was an exclusive interview that not just anyone could get. He thought his attempt had failed. Lady Anne sighed, and Eden thought to himself that things were getting more complicated, and he would surely die. He wondered what he should do now, and considered whether he should start a long battle using alchemy first. As Eden was wondering if he should hit Lady Anne and kidnap her, she surprised him by saying he should have told her that sooner. She declared he was the strongest of the strong, and that there was no better candidate to be her blood servant, confirming he was fully qualified. Eden replied happily, noting her good judgment, and that there was no talent like his anywhere. But he thought to himself that she was surprisingly naive, and this was the easiest scam of his life. Eden eagerly asked if he would be bitten immediately, admitting he wasn't quite mentally prepared. But Lady Anne replied with surprise, explaining that she now knew he was the strongest, but he hadn't proven it yet. She told him he had only qualified, and if he proved he was the strongest from now on, she would officially allow him to become her blood servant. The lady asked Eden if he had foolishly thought he would become one of them immediately. It was then that Eden realized he had been deceived. Despite his shock, Eden composed himself and accepted the challenge. Eden was confident that she had planned this from the beginning, and he believed she had orchestrated all of it just to get revenge on him, asking Lady Anne what method she preferred for him to prove his strength. At that moment, Lady Anne stopped and asked him how he knew her name, then suddenly realized and wondered how he knew she was a vampire in the first place. Eden replied that one of the maids who were protecting her had told him. He explained that he didn't know what she looked like because she was headless, but it seemed she had been protecting this place for a long time. Lady Anne's confusion grew, asking what headless maid he was talking about. Suddenly she felt something strange, and began to lose focus. A dark, evil entity appeared in her mind, repeating the word, erase, and this entity began to erase her memories with a large paintbrush. This being continued to erase her memories one by one. All her memories were hanging on a wall, and the being didn't stop erasing them with its brush. Then the being realized Lady Anne was looking at it, so it turned to her, and it smiled a sinister smile, saying, erase. A few moments later, Lady Anne clutched her head in pain, and told Eden she couldn't remember anything and asked what happened. Eden noted with concern that something was wrong. When Lady Anne tried to reassure Eden that she was fine, he grabbed her and asked skeptically if she was really okay. Suddenly she started acting strangely. Her form changed, which confused them both. She screamed that she was not okay at all. Eden was surprised by this sudden change, and Lady Anne transformed into a small child. Eden realized this was the vampire's disguise he had only heard about. Lady Anne screamed at him that it was an ability that couldn't be real. Lady Anne became frustrated, feeling her body was completely drained of energy, and realized the story of 200 years passing was not a lie. Eden asked her to check her height, telling her she reached about his chest. She bit him in anger, and screamed at him to check her form again now. Eden screamed in panic, asking what the hell she was doing. She calmly replied, surprised by his fuss over nothing, and told him that once he became her blood servant, he would be fine in no time. Eden demanded she make him her blood servant immediately, but she refused, saying she didn't trust him with something like that. Eden screamed, asking about his shattered arm. She replied that it was his fault for being a weak human, not hers. Eden scoffed at her, pointing out that she was 200 years old and using that as an excuse. She ordered him to be quiet and quickly tell her how much she had grown. Eden told her it was obvious she hadn't changed at all, which she didn't believe. Suddenly, a large, strong man stopped her. Thinking that Eden was holding the shoulders of a small child, with his mouth stained with blood, Eden thought he had failed this time. The angry man shouted at Eden, calling him a scoundrel. The man immediately apologized, explaining that he thought Eden was kidnapping a child and had made a grave mistake. Eden replied that it was okay, and blamed it on bad luck, claiming his cousin had eaten wild berries and started playing around. Lady Anne told the man there was no need to apologize, and that Eden had made it look suspicious, but he could have used kinder words. Eden thought he might have to hit the vampire. Eden thought to himself in anger that he had wasted the rare blood flower, and that there must not be any more of it even in the black market, and that he would surely die when Mary found out. Then the man asked Eden if he was the alchemist, and Eden introduced himself. At that, the man asked Eden for a favor. The man suddenly stopped when he heard a scream. When the man asked Eden for a favor, he suddenly heard a familiar voice calling, "Emily!" The man rushed towards the source of the sound, a nearby hut. Upon arriving, he found the old woman, the grandmother, putting something strange and green in her mouth, while her granddaughter Emily was scolding her severely. Emily was asking her grandmother how many times she had warned her not to put random things in her mouth for fear of being bitten. The grandmother started crying, accusing Emily of not letting her do anything and always being harsh with her, and demanded she return what she had taken from her. When the grandmother saw Lady Anne, she rushed towards her immediately. When she reached her, she hugged her at once, expressing how much she had missed her. Then the grandmother commented that Emily was small and cute, and that's why she loved her more. Lady Anne felt uncomfortable with this scene and tried to push the grandmother away from her. The grandfather invited everyone inside to talk, while Lady Anne was screaming in the background that she would kill Eden. Inside, the grandfather explained to Eden that the grandmother had suddenly turned into a child, He added that she now couldn't even remember her family's faces. He recounted how the grandmother used to be strict, sharp-witted, and never missed a detail. Then one day she started forgetting things, and now she was like a little child who understands nothing. When Eden deduced that the favor the grandfather asked for was to treat the grandmother with alchemy, Emily was shocked and realized he was an alchemist. She immediately assured him that they had nothing to give him, and begged him to eat and leave. Eden reassured her not to worry about that, and that he couldn't leave after being invited for a meal, admitting it had been a long time since he had been welcomed so warmly. The grandfather told him not to think that way, that the past was over, and that just having people show up in a remote place like theirs was a blessing. Eden decided he must earn his meal. He asked Madini to bring him a book, and a magical book appeared before him. Eden explained that although the alchemy he mastered didn't help much with healing, he knew a good remedy. He opened the book and searched until he found what he wanted, the inverted silver thorn tree. He put his hand into the book and pulled out a fruit from this tree, explaining that it clears the mind, and that if the grandmother ate it after her meal, it would be beneficial. But the grandmother snatched the fruit and ate it immediately, prompting Emily to scold her again. Afterward, the grandfather asked Eden about his plans, and he replied that he was thinking of heading to the nearby village of Robins to get some things. The grandfather noted that Emily seemed more cheerful than usual and guessed it was because they had a guest. The grandfather suggested that Eden stay the night because the bridge to the city was under repair, and he would be able to move easily the next day. After a moment of thought, Eden agreed, noting that he and Lady Anne would need new clothes anyway. Eden noticed that Anne was more cooperative than he expected, although he had thought she would be more annoyed. But Anne warned him not to think she was nice, and that she would kick him out immediately if he tried anything. She added that her warning included all the humans in the place, and that she was watching all of them. This comment angered Eden, who called her a stupid vampire in his mind. After that, Emily asked Eden for help with the laundry, and he immediately agreed. Emily asked him if he had ever washed clothes by hand before, and he replied of course, explaining that without alchemy, he was just an ordinary person. While they were washing the clothes, Eden commented that the weather was nice and the laundry would dry well. Suddenly, Anne was hit in the face with a ball of mud. The grandmother suddenly invited her to play Mud War. Anne felt extremely disgusted, and screamed in anger that she would kill them all, while the grandmother ran away laughing. Elsewhere, two people were watching Eden from a distance, having located him and the vampire with him. One wondered if the other would really meet him even though their leader Ivan hadn't ordered it, and the other confirmed that he wanted to find out for himself why Ivan chose him, and to see how special he was. As evening fell, Eden gave the grandmother a blanket to keep her warm. Eden commented that it was surprising to see her asleep, as she didn't look different from normal humans. Later, after Emily enjoyed a relaxing bath, she asked Madini if she had enjoyed it too. Emily apologized to Eden for being late and asked if anything had happened, and he assured her that everything was fine. Eden asked Anne if anything had happened to her, but he was surprised by her reaction and felt a murderous intent coming from her. She remembered when she was enjoying the bath, and Emily apologized for what the grandmother had done to her, asking her to understand her condition because she was sick, and telling her that her grandfather really liked her. As Emily was hugging Anne tightly, and Anne tried to push her away, which greatly angered Anne, Emily apologized to Anne, explaining it was just an excessive gesture of affection. After the boisterous bath, Lady Anne decided she would never bathe with anyone ever again. Emily offered her a glass of milk to calm her down, and told her that milk was the primary reason for bathing, while Anne sat in confusion. She thought that even though there were humans in front of her, she didn't feel angry at all, and wondered if this was the feeling of amnesia, describing it as very annoying, but she didn't know what to do in this situation. Anne was surprised when she saw everyone looking at her strangely. Suddenly, the grandmother woke up and saw the glass of milk in Anne's hand. The grandmother snatched the glass of milk from Anne and claimed it was hers, which prompted Emily to scold her again and tell her that this cup was for Anne. Eden tried to calm the situation by jokingly telling Anne that the milk seemed to suit her taste. At that moment, they heard a knock on the door. Emily told them it was her grandfather and that she had asked him to bring some vegetables from the garden. Then she went to open the door, but Eden asked if he could open it instead. He welcomed him as he opened the door, but Eden suddenly felt a dangerous sensation. A strange person appeared behind the door and released mysterious soap bubbles. He heard the grandfather's warning from outside not to enter the bubble, but Eden touched it. The girl outside ordered the bubble to burst, resulting in a massive explosion that destroyed part of the house. Amidst the chaos, Anne and Emily wondered what had happened. The grandfather appeared lying on the ground outside, covered in blood, while the strange girl stood outside, wondering where Eden Isaac was. Eden was hovering in the sky where he confronted the girl with white hair and violet eyes. This person attacked Eden with energy shots. The shots hit the enemy's back. Eden let go of Madini, who was the reason he was flying, and then fell to the ground. He used the triple point shot, ending the confrontation by aiming his pistol at his opponent. Eden asked his attacker for their identity and the reason for their actions. The attacker realized that Eden's pistol was the weapon of the legendary sage Grace, describing it as extremely dangerous. Eden realized the enemy would not respond to his questions, so he shot them in the head. After making sure the enemy was dead, Eden moved to check on the grandfather. Near the destroyed house, Eden screamed in horror upon seeing the injured grandfather. He apologized for being late and began to treat the grandfather immediately. The grandfather thanked him for protecting their family. But in the other space, the attacker stabbed Eden in the chest. Eden screamed for Medini as he fell, his eyes filled with a furious look. The attacker warned that she absolutely hates people who mess things up. Eden fell to the ground, bleeding, wondering how he was still alive. Despite losing so much blood, Eden wondered what kind of monster this was that had appeared out of nowhere. His only concern was to save the grandfather quickly. As he was losing consciousness, he saw a blue butterfly and realized that the master of this butterfly was the one who had helped him find the vampire. The grandfather shouted that he would not let the attacker get near his family. The bubble-using attacker appeared, walking towards them, trapping the grandfather in one of her bubbles. The mysterious girl approached them and announced the dream release. Her words led to a massive explosion of the bubble that held the grandfather, and the girl appeared calmly amidst it. Emily was screaming in terror as she saw her grandfather die. Emily then fell to the ground. Anne noticed that Emily was acting strangely and slapped her to bring her to her senses. At that moment, the white-haired girl appeared behind Anne and commented that Eden was still weak and nothing special, and that she had wasted her time. The girl commented that Eden Isaac was completely useless. Anne got angry and questioned who she thought she was to do this to her. The girl used the dream release skill, forming a bubble around Anne's head. At that moment, the grandmother intervened and shouted at the girl, asking how she could hurt a child. Anne was freed from the aggressor's grip. The grandmother stood bravely in front of Anne, believing she was her granddaughter, vowing to hunt the attacker to the ends of hell if she touched a single hair on her head. This situation surprised Anne, who wondered what had happened to the grandmother and how she had suddenly regained her senses. The attacker calmly removed the pot from her head. Eden took the opportunity and inflicted fatal wounds on I. Eden confirmed that he had finally found the owner of the blue butterfly, and that he had many questions for him. The attacker scoffed at Eden, considering what he did to be pointless, but Eden calmly told her that it would become clear soon, explaining that the bullet was coated with blood snake venom, and that a terrible pain that would make him wish for death would soon begin. The girl admitted that the venom was annoyingly painful. Eden was shocked when he saw that the venom hadn't weakened her as he thought. The girl expressed her intense anger at Eden for interrupting her a second time. Meanwhile, she had placed the entire house in a huge bubble, and then performed the dream release, causing a massive purple explosion. Nothing remained in the place where the house had stood except for Eden. The mysterious girl appeared and asked her companion to show himself now that it was over. She asked her companion why he didn't come out and face the situation, and he replied that he preferred to watch from the back. Next to the girl, a shadow rose from the ground. A man appeared before them, and commented that the plan had failed as expected, and that those who call themselves super alchemists are no different from ordinary alchemists. Eden woke up, severely injured, to find the attackers standing before him. He desperately asked them for their identities and why they had done all this. When Eden saw his attackers, he wondered if they were the Red Hollow he had only heard rumors about. The attackers introduced themselves as being from Lord Ivan's family. The first introduced himself as the seventh, Blade, nicknamed the Black Dog, and introduced the girl as the second, Claire, nicknamed the Reverse Dream. Blade coolly welcomed Eden Isaac. When Eden realized they were from Ivan's family, he rushed towards them desperately, asking where Erlin and Ivan were. Blade replied that he knew Eden was in a hurry, but they were in a hurry too. He told him they had resorted to these methods because of his slow growth and ordered him to regain consciousness. Then they decided to leave, considering Eden useless, and that they would find another way, leaving him behind as they had no need for failures. Eden refused to let them leave, but he was in a state of shock. Anne slapped him hard to wake him up, and angrily asked him what was wrong. When he looked around and asked where Ivan's family was, Anne told him they had disappeared long ago. Medini hugged him, and Eden apologized for worrying her and thanked her, saying he felt better now. Eden asked Anne how she survived, and she replied that it was thanks to Medini, who is 100 times more useful than him, and that Medini had put them in its mouth and got out of the bubble before it exploded. Anne explained that the problem now was the grandfather, who had sacrificed himself to save them. He had intended to die with them inside the bubble, but his sacrifice ultimately became meaningless. At that moment, Eden took out a device and sent a distress signal to Acta. Eden told Emily that an alchemist would come to help soon. Emily wondered what the point of that was, while Eden blamed himself because he should have protected them but failed. Eden sat beside the weeping Emily, apologizing, and blaming himself for her grandfather's death because his weakness prevented him from protecting him. Emily was crying in grief for her grandfather, and Eden felt deeply ashamed of his weakness. 3 days later in the village of Robins, as Eden was recovering in bed, Anne confronted him angrily. She demanded to know the truth of what had happened. Eden wondered to himself what this was supposed to mean. Anne asked him how the world's strongest alchemist could be so easily defeated by those people. Eden was surprised by this question and tried to remain calm, but he realized this was an opportunity he couldn't waste. Eden responded to her question with another, asking why she, who claims to be the strongest of her kind, couldn't do anything during the attack, considering it was a perfect opportunity for her to show the prestige of vampires. Anne was flustered by this response, and she started hitting Eden while screaming angrily. How dare he utter such rude words to her? Eden decided to tell her what he knew since they were in the same situation. He explained that those they had met were Ivan's followers, and they present themselves as his family. He added that although there were rumors about him gathering forces, this was the first time they had actually appeared, which meant something was definitely about to begin. Anne wondered what kind of person Ivan was to have such individuals following him. Eden replied that Ivan is an exceptional alchemist, one of the 4 sages called the greatest alchemists in Acta, and like him, he is also a primeval alchemist. Eden explained that primeval alchemists are people who possess the original abilities of alchemy, which are 5 blessings: memory, creation, time, destruction, space, granted to humans by the primeval god, Sisu. He added that primeval alchemists are those who preserve these blessings from fading away. He revealed that the alchemy Ivan possesses is creation, which is known as the most dangerous type of alchemy, as it grants the ability to create life and not just inanimate objects, and that Ivan is trying to break this taboo. Eden asserted that the arrogance of challenging divine authority must be stopped before it is complete, and that this was another reason for his pursuit of Ivan. Anne summarized the situation sarcastically, pointing out that he was a primeval alchemist just like him, but so weak that even Ivan's followers didn't know what to do with him. Eden exploded in anger, wondering why his words always turned out to have this meaning. Anne ignored him and firmly declared that her blood servant never loses, and that she would not tolerate him bowing his head again. Eden agreed with a forced smile, thinking to himself that her true nature shows when she gets angry. Anne suggested to Eden that they change the subject. Eden suggested going out to buy new clothes for Anne. She was surprised by Eden's sudden suggestion to go out and buy her clothes. Anne got very excited and hurried him, asking annoyedly, "What are you doing?" After shopping, she came out wearing a new black dress and looked happy, thanking the shopkeeper for his service. Eden commented that beautiful clothes are like wings and that her appearance was not bad at all. As they were walking, Eden felt some chaos, but she ignored it and suggested they hurry to eat something delicious. Suddenly, they noticed a large crowd of people running down the street. Someone shouted that the full moon circus had arrived. Eden got very excited and begged Anne to go watch it just once. Eden said to Anne, pulling her by the hand, that they just mentioned the full moon circus, the show he had really wanted to see. Eden promised her she would enjoy her time there. Despite her reluctance, Eden agreed to go quickly. Amidst the large crowd, Anne wondered about all the fuss over the circus. Eden explained that the circus puts on shows with lots of amazing tricks, and the full moon circus in particular is said to be so spectacular that it rivals alchemy. The shows began, but Anne didn't seem impressed at first. To help her see better, Eden lifted her up and placed her on his shoulders. The ringmaster welcomed the audience. He was dressed as a clown and hovered in the sky. The audience wondered how he was flying, ruling out the possibility of him being an alchemist. The clown announced his first act, Paper Waves, and began to wave his wand. The clown threw colorful paper scraps into the air, announcing the Paper Bear, then revealed his upcoming show, where the Full Moon Circus would perform in Orly Square at 8 o'clock in the evening. He waved his cloak to suddenly reveal the circus mascots, Joyby and Goma, and enthusiastically invited the audience to come in large numbers to watch an exceptional show in the evening. After the promotional show ended, Eden asked Anne for her opinion, reminding her that she had said she wouldn't find it enjoyable. Anne showed some interest but quickly hid it, and claimed these things were only for children. Eden was surprised by her refusal to watch the night show. Anne reminded him that their goal was not to watch the circus, but to restore her memory as quickly as possible. Eden seemed surprised by her mention of memory, but Anne quickly changed the subject, reasoning that the conversation was over, and asked him about the delicious food he had mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, the clown noticed Anne at the back of the crowd. The clown called to her from a distance, but she didn't hear his voice. Eden told Anne that the clown was calling her, and indeed, the clown shouted loudly, calling her Little One. Anne was annoyed by this name, and suddenly, the clown moved with incredible speed, leaping high into the air with unnatural agility. He landed behind her in the blink of an eye, shocking both Anne and Eden with his amazing speed. Anne asked him sharply what he wanted, addressing him as human. The clown ignored her question and approached her, commenting on the beauty of her red eyes when seen up close. The clown kept staring at Anne non-stop, which angered her. He then formally invited her to attend the show at 8 o'clock. Anne coolly declined his invitation, saying she wasn't interested and would rather eat something delicious instead. The clown thought for a moment, and then made her another offer. He took out a bunch of tickets and told her he would invite her entire family, adding that thanks to her, everyone would enjoy a wonderful show. Anne was surprised by his behavior and asked him what kind of trick he was trying to pull, and he replied that she couldn't deceive his eyes. Anne expressed her annoyance at the clown's talk about her family and demanded he get out of her sight, telling him sharply that she didn't have a family. Suddenly, a mysterious and disturbing vision overcame her. She found herself in a dark space where her memories were hung like pictures on a wall, which shocked her, while a small, evil entity was erasing those pictures with its brush. Amidst this chaos, a specific memory shone through, a picture of a woman resembling her hugging a luminous teddy bear doll. Suddenly, the doll came out of the picture, materializing before Anne in the vision, and the doll rushed towards Anne until it hugged her, its image reflected in her eyes. Anne whispered a name, Isabel. Eden noticed her sudden change and wondered in confusion what was happening to her. Although he didn't see anything strange with his own eyes, her behavior had become worrisome. Suddenly, Anne grabbed Eden's hand and told him urgently that they had to go somewhere immediately. As she pulled him behind her, Eden asked where they were going, and she replied that they were going home. Anne explained to Eden that a memory had suddenly returned to her, but she realized at the same time that something was deliberately erasing her memories. She wondered with concern why this was happening, and what was being hidden from her. Meanwhile, the clown, whose name was Lloyd, was sad that he couldn't convince Anne. He was talking with his circus colleague, expressing his regret for missing the chance to meet a special audience member. When his colleague asked if he meant the Alchemist, Lloyd denied it, and indicated that he meant that girl, who seemed familiar to them. Later at a train station, Eden thought that this might be the first time he had ridden a surface train since he parted ways with a character named Mary. He explained to Anne that they took the train because the place she described as home was located on the outskirts of the kingdom. Eden noticed Anne looking around with a strange expression, and he jokingly assumed that trains didn't exist 200 years ago and that this experience must be new to her. But Anne angrily denied it, insisting that in her era there were better and more wonderful means of transport, like the baggage carrier and the fire nut that could move 2 mountains, and Cinderella's pumpkin carriage. Eden continued to tease Anne about the old modes of transport, quietly wondering if they were really better than modern trains. But Anne retorted that he still needed more education on the matter. She punched him in the face. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the ticket inspector who asked to see their tickets. Eden presented the tickets while trying to hold back his tears, but the inspector announced loudly that the tickets were for 1 adult and 1 child, which clearly angered Anne. After sitting down, Eden seriously asked Anne if they were really going to her old palace just for her blood servant. Anne confirmed it, which surprised Eden, who thought he was her only blood servant. Anne explained that a blood servant is an essential element for any noble vampire. She revealed that she had one other blood servant, an exceptional warrior named Isabel, and described her as the strongest of all. Anne warned Eden that he should be nervous about meeting her, as she outranked him and he might not even be able to look her in the face. Eden interrupted her, pointing out that the Wilhelmberg palace they were heading to had burned down 200 years ago, and the site was now under the management of the kingdom's knights, making it impossible for Isabel to still be alive. Anne vehemently rejected his words, insisting with firm belief that Isabel was alive. She placed her hand on her chest, explaining that as her mistress, she could feel that Isabel was still waiting for her, and warned him to stop this nonsense. At that moment, sunlight entered the train, and the sunlight bothered Anne. Eden noticed this and asked her how she wasn't affected by sunlight, as he knew that vampires were weak against it. Anne replied with a sarcastic smile, explaining that this trivial matter only applies to pathetic, pure-blood vampires. As for her, being a noble half-blood, sunlight was no problem at all. Eden was shocked by this revelation, wondering about the existence of hybrid vampires, as he had thought they only maintained the purity of their bloodline. But Anne ignored his question, and announced that she was hungry, and they should go eat. Eden tried to stop her, determined to get an answer, but she left and left him alone. Eden sighed, grumbling about her rude personality, and began to wonder if her being a half-blood was the reason for her short stature, and he felt a headache from the many secrets surrounding the world of vampires. At another time, Anne was thinking, wondering if she had chosen the wrong person. Anne asked Eden if that was suitable for him, but Eden quickly assured her that this was the second reason. That drives him to persevere no matter the difficulties, readily declaring that the time to start has come. Back on the train, Anne was sitting in front of a huge amount of sweets, eating earnestly. Eden asked her in amazement if she could eat all of this, and she confirmed it, adding that she had actually brought less than usual, and that if she wanted to, she could fill the entire train car with sweets, as her appetite had no limits. Eden noticed a crazy look in her eyes as he thought about her obsession with sweets, while Medini rested in a nearby bowl, looking full. Eden commented that if he had more time, he would have bought more. Then he jokingly asked if she wasn't going to eat, and offered to eat her share himself. But she exploded in anger and screamed at him not to dare touch her food. Anne grabbed Eden's collar violently, which surprised the other passengers. Eden, who was trembling, tried to reassure the worried Medini that he was still fine and could handle the situation. But he soon collapsed comically, declaring that he regretted nothing, and that a simple stomachache was worthless for the sake of sweets. Anne looked at him with disdain and asked Medini if this idiot always acted like this. Later, after they arrived, they were walking in a forest. Eden complained that they had been walking for 2 hours without seeing anything and asked how much farther they had to go. Anne simply replied that she didn't know the way either. This angered him greatly, and he wondered how she didn't know the way to her own home. Eden continued to grumble that they had come all this way for her sake, and Eden muttered that she should have told him that beforehand. Suddenly Anne hit him hard and screamed at him, accusing him of defying his mistress. Eden cried out in pain, but Anne suddenly stopped, realizing his fragile physical state, and Eden cried out to Medini for help. In an instant, they arrived at their destination, with Anne and Medini looking completely exhausted. It seemed Medini had carried her at great speed. Anne found herself in front of the ruins of a burnt building. Suddenly, 2 knights appeared and asked for their identities. The knights warned them that this was land belonging to the kingdom of Credio, and that they should turn back unless they had permission. Anne indicated that the slowpoke would arrive soon. At that moment, Eden appeared, explaining that he had taken care of something in the nearby forest with Medini's help. Anne was angry at his appearance and screamed at him to get away from her, and that she had ordered him to stay 50 paces behind her. Eden advanced towards the knights, who drew their swords and declared they were there under the authority of the Special Investigation Team. Eden calmly told the knights to lower their swords, explaining that he had something to check as a member of the Special Investigation Team. He explained that after the War of the Races, their team was formed and given the authority to investigate anywhere to monitor any unknown beings, and that the Kingdom of Credio was a prime example of this agreement. He then presented a card bearing the badge of his office. The knight captain examined the badge and confirmed it was real, but he wondered why they had come to these remote ruins. Suddenly, he recognized the name Eden Isaac on the card and was shocked, realizing he was in the presence of the famous Super Alchemist. At that moment, more knights arrived, and their leader immediately recognized Eden, asking him excitedly if he was the Alchemist of Time, Eden Isaac. Eden confirmed his identity, and the knight expressed his deep admiration, explaining to the astonished Anne that Eden was highly regarded among the archer knights. He added that he had dreamed of becoming an alchemist and admired Eden's unique abilities, especially since they were about the same age. Eden felt pleased with this praise, much to Anne's displeasure. The knight's attention then turned to Anne, wondering about the identity of the little girl beside him and the need to verify it. Eden told the knight that Anne was his cousin. In a flash of memory, Anne remembered how Eden had previously warned her to pretend to be his cousin and avoid any suspicious behavior, because if her identity as a vampire was discovered in front of the knights, it would mean the end for both of them. But Anne had stubbornly refused his request, declaring she would do as she pleased. Back in the present, Eden hesitantly told the knight that her story was complicated but she was under his care. The knight accepted his answer and gave them permission to inspect the ruins. Suddenly, Anne ran towards the ruins shouting, "This way!" Eden apologized to the knights with a nervous laugh, claiming his cousin was a bit energetic, then hurried after her, muttering that he had warned her not to move on her own. Eden found her standing bewildered in front of a solid stone wall. Eden commented that there was no obvious entrance, but Anne insisted angrily that she was sure there was a secret entrance leading underground right in this spot, and she wondered who had sealed it. Eden deduced from her confidence that the entrance might be hidden, and decided to use a gift he had received from someone named Charlotte. He took out a vial and poured a liquid from it that formed into a blue, slimy creature. Eden addressed the creature as Baby Sticky and asked it to remove anything hidden on the wall. The creature extended its arms and revealed a magical seal hiding the entrance. Eden realized that someone had deliberately hidden the entrance using hidden magic. As soon as the slimy creature revealed the secret entrance, a dark passage opened up. Anne immediately rushed inside eagerly. Eden tried to stop her, shouting that they should go in together, while Anne announced that she was about to arrive, but she had already disappeared into the darkness. Eden ordered Medini to go ahead and follow her. Down below, Medini led Anne through the dark corridor until she reached a frozen room. In the middle of the room, on a bed, sat a teddy bear doll wearing a pink hood. Anne approached the doll and apologized for being late, asking if she had made it wait long, then called it by the name Isabel. Eden arrived at that moment and was utterly shocked, wondering in disbelief if this teddy bear was really the blood servant Anne had talked about. Anne ignored him and ran to hug the doll with immense joy. Afterward, Anne pricked her finger and dripped her blood onto the doll, asking sarcastically what the problem was, while Eden was about to express the absurdity of a teddy bear being a blood servant. Before he could finish his sentence, a powerful energy burst threw him backward. The doll began to transform and grow, taking the form of a young girl with white hair and bare ears. The girl was crying, wondering if what she was seeing was a dream. Anne reassured her with a smile, confirming that it was real and that she had kept her promise to come back for her. Apologizing again for being late, Isabel screamed with joy, "Lady Anne!" and hugged her tightly. expressing how much she had missed her and that she had been eagerly waiting for this day. She described how the place she had slept in was dark and scary, and that she had been alone all these long years in that pitch-black darkness. Anne patted her on the head and reassured her that she wouldn't have to worry anymore, and that they would never be separated again. Eden watched the scene in silence, shocked by the transformation of the doll into a person. He began to analyze the situation, concluding that a blood contract could even affect inanimate objects, and that this, in addition to the fact that Anne was a half-blood, was a huge amount of new information for him. Suddenly, Isabel noticed his presence, and her expression changed instantly. Her arm transformed into a sharp blade, and she stood between Anne and Eden, pointing the blade at his neck and asking who he was. She warned him that he would not touch her, Lady Anne, and that he should leave immediately if he wanted to live. Anne intervened at once, ordering Isabel to stop. She explained that Eden was a prospective blood servant she had brought with her, and that he was a competent person who had come voluntarily to serve her. Isabel was surprised by this, realizing that this yellow monkey, as she called him, was her first subordinate. She then introduced herself to Eden in a condescending tone, declaring that she was his senior by many ranks, and that she had much to teach him. As Eden hesitantly introduced himself to Isabel, she immediately began his training, declaring that the first rule is to always answer with the word grrrr. Eden thought to himself that this situation seemed extremely exhausting. Isabel sat next to Anne, expressing her shock and sadness at what had happened during her sleep. 200 years had passed, they had lost the war, and her mistress had reverted to the form of a child. Despite everything, she was happy to see Anne alive, and hugged her lovingly, saying she had never seen her childhood form before and found it cute. Anne took the opportunity to ask Isabel if she remembered anything about her past, like people she knew or things she did. Isabel replied that she didn't know much because she was asleep most of the time, but she remembered that Anne always seemed exhausted in the past. She added that she definitely remembered Molly. Anne was surprised by this name and asked who she was. Isabel was deeply shocked and wondered how she couldn't remember her, explaining that Molly was the only human servant Anne had ever relied on. Anne was stunned by the idea that she had relied on a human. Meanwhile, Eden wondered if this servant was the same headless servant who had protected the forest. Anne decided to tell Isabel the truth, and confessed that she had lost her memories, and that she felt someone had tampered with them, as most of her memories were either blurred or completely missing. She explained that this was the reason for her delay in finding her. Eden angrily interrupted their conversation, asking why she hadn't told him such an important thing earlier, as their cooperative relationship required trust and information sharing. He added that trust is the most important thing in a relationship between two people. Anne retorted sharply, asking why she would tell someone like him such a thing. He replied that if he wasn't trustworthy, then who would she trust? She ordered him to be grateful that he at least knew now. Isabel intervened in the argument, scolding Eden, whom she called the yellow monkey, for not showing proper etiquette, and for daring to talk back to her mistress with such insolence. Then without warning, she delivered a powerful punch to him. The knights outside felt a violent tremor and wondered if it was an earthquake. Eden, who had narrowly survived, thought that if he hadn't dodged the blow, he would have died instantly. Isabel apologized with a laugh, saying she couldn't control her strength because so much time had passed. Anne smiled sinisterly as she enjoyed the scene, and ordered Eden to kneel, saying that this was his natural place. Eden felt defeated, realizing he had forgotten that no one was on his side here, and that he should have thought carefully before coming. Suddenly, the two knights who were outside entered. Anne shouted loudly at Isabel, who replied with a grrrr and disappeared. The knights worriedly asked Eden if he was all right after they felt the massive earthquake. Eden reassured the knights that they were fine, claiming that what happened was just a small mistake during the investigation. The knight captain was impressed by Eden's power, considering it amazing that a mistake could have such force. Eden asked Anne to leave now, pointing out that the place was filled with ominous energy. Anne immediately agreed. The knights thanked Eden for his efforts before he left. Outside, Eden wondered about the nature of that cellar, and Anne replied that she didn't know. Maybe it was someone's dwelling in the past, but now it was just useless remains. Anne told Eden that she had a new goal she wanted to achieve. She enthusiastically announced that she would create her own family, a great and powerful family that could not be destroyed. Eden expressed his admiration for her ambitious plan, but he suddenly realized something. Anne mentioned that since Isabel was back, nothing was impossible, which led Eden to wonder where Isabel, who had suddenly disappeared, was. Eden felt worried because Anne had disappeared without reason. Outside the cellar, a knight appeared, impaled by a sword. Isabel appeared, confronting a group of knights. She told them that what she was doing was just carrying out her mistress's orders, and that it was their bad luck to be guarding this place. She then finished off the last knight, and had eliminated all of them in the blink of an eye. After the battle, Isabel thought happily that she had completed her mission and should hurry back to her mistress Anne, hoping to receive her praise. Back with Eden and Anne calmly told Eden that Isabel would be back soon, and that she had sent her on a simple mission. Eden thought to himself that he tended to worry too much. and wondered what would happen if Isabel got lost. But Anne reassured him that it was impossible. They were connected by blood, and even if she fell into hell, Isabel would be able to find her. She then added that the real problem now was when they would be able to return to that cellar again. After a long journey, Anne and Eden finally reached their destination, and Anne sighed in annoyance. Eden asked her to look outside. They stood before a huge and majestic wall. Eden explained that it was the Wailing Wall, the greatest fortress in human history, which represents the western gate of the kingdom of Credio. He added that it was the only wall that withstood the war of the races. Anne looked at the fortress they could not breach, grumbling about humanity's ability to build such a thing. Eden hurried her along after she had seen enough of the wall. When they entered, the guards greeted Eden with respect, which gave him a sense of pride, so he put his arm around Anne, who was carrying Isabel in the form of a doll and looked very annoyed. They took a carriage to get inside, and Anne complained about having to ride this thing again. Eden explained that the distance to the center of the western gate was very long, and Anne wondered about the size of the lands humans live on. Eden told her that the area of their lands had quadrupled since the War of the Races, which shocked her deeply. Eden explained that humanity's victory in the war, which was like a miracle, unexpectedly led to the creation of a larger and more prosperous kingdom than ever before, and that humanity was now living in its greatest golden age. Eden asked Anne for her opinion on the progress humans had achieved. When they reached the center, the stunning development was evident, and she expressed her deep admiration and wondered what humans had done to reach this level. Anne began to think about her new ambitions. Since she had recovered Isabel, she could now create the strongest family ever, and being the strongest meant becoming the absolute ruler, and thus everything would become hers. Eden noticed her lost in thought, interrupted her, and told her they had to go somewhere first. He warned her that she might not like the place, and asked her not to get angry. They finally arrived at their destination, and Anne was in a bad mood, just as Eden had thought. At the headquarters of the Archer Knights, Anne explained to Eden that the reason didn't matter. Even if she had lost her memory, she never thought she would one day come to the headquarters of the Order's Knights. Anne looked at the building bitterly, but she thought that since Isabel was with her, there was nothing to fear. Then she realized this was a perfect opportunity. This headquarters was the center of the most important information flow in the kingdom, and if she could merge her power with their information, achieving her goal of building the strongest family would become instantaneous. Eden told her she would be even more surprised when she found out who they were going to meet. Then he knocked on a door, announcing their arrival to meet the deputy commander of the Archer Knights, and the person who claims to be the CEO of Supernatural Beauty. After Eden announced their arrival, a pink-haired woman who had been sleeping at her desk woke up, thinking the commander had arrived, but she claimed she wasn't sleeping but was in a state of meditation. The woman realized the visitor was Eden and wondered where he had been all this time. Suddenly she noticed Anne's presence and described her as a cute little girl. Her office was in a state of complete chaos. The woman invited Eden and Anne to sit, but there was no place for them to sit due to the mess that filled the room. Eden sighed, wondering how it got worse every time he visited her. The woman defended her mess, saying everything was organized in its own way. The woman introduced herself as Deputy Commander Militang Brett, and commented that Anne, Eden's cousin, seemed to be about the same age as Erlin. The mention of this name piqued the curiosity of Anne, who was eating. Militang was surprised that Anne didn't know Erlin. Militang asked Eden about it, and he evasively replied that Anne was a distant relative, so he saw no need to mention it, especially since the news about Erlin wasn't good. Militang commented that he should have at least told her, especially since he had spent his whole life looking for his sister, and that it was a miracle he was still alive given his poor health. Eden changed the subject, explaining that he came for another reason, and asked about the rumors of the Red Hollow appearing. He also heard rumors about many alchemists being in the area. At that moment, a man wearing sunglasses entered, wondering if the voice he heard was Isaac's. Militang welcomed him, and the man revealed his identity, Deputy Commander Hughes Anthony. Hughes welcomed Eden, noting it was the first time they had met face to face. Eden jokingly asked if he could see with his glasses, and Hughes replied no, saying he was just adding some tension to the situation. He then guessed that Eden had come because of that matter. Suddenly, Hughes felt a very dangerous aura emanating from Anne. He realized something impossible was happening, and decided to himself that he must kill this threat immediately. Hughes launched a swift and deadly attack towards Anne, but in the blink of an eye, Eden and Militang appeared, blocked the attack, and saved Anne. Militang wondered angrily what Hughes was doing, attacking a child. Hughes Anthony looked at Anne, asking sarcastically if she was just a child. Eden stood in front of Anne to protect her, then warned Hughes that he would overlook it this time, demanding he put away his sword immediately and provide an explanation for what happened. He added that if he drew his sword on his esteemed guest again without reason, he would pull the trigger without hesitation. Militang intervened angrily, and ordered Hughes to apologize immediately. She pushed his head forcefully towards the ground. Hughes apologized profusely, admitting he had committed a mortal sin. He assured her he would do anything to appease her anger, and asked if she was hurt, vowing to pay her back 100-fold. Anne looked at him with disdain, calling him a foolish human scoundrel, and told him he was lucky she possessed great mercy. Both Eden and Militang watched the scene in stunned silence. Eden felt relieved to see someone other than himself being tormented by Anne. Militang scolded Hughes, wondering how he could feel a dangerous aura from such a cute little girl. Hughes admitted he had made a mistake by drawing his sword without realizing she was a child, and offered his apology again, but he whispered to Militang that he was not mistaken in sensing the danger. Eden thought about the situation. He knew that Hughes, despite being unable to see, possessed an abnormally sharp detection ability. He concluded that Hughes had not sensed the danger from Anne, who had lost most of her power, but rather the dangerous aura emanating from Isabel, who was in the form of a doll. But he realized that Hughes wouldn't be sure of the source of the danger, because it was impossible to imagine that a teddy bear could possess such immense power. Eden decided they should leave as soon as possible. He returned to the main topic and asked about the big explosion that occurred a week ago. Militang explained that the Archer Knights were certain that the Red Hollow was responsible and that they had requested help. She added that the attack was deliberate and very obvious, as if the perpetrators wanted to draw attention. Militang recounted witness testimonies who saw a strange person wearing a long black cloak just before the explosion. Clumps of black fur came out from under his cloak, and then the building exploded. She confirmed that the terrorists' distinguishing feature, according to multiple testimonies, was a star-shaped petal on the back of his hand. Eden confirmed that this was the mark of the Red Hollow. Militang agreed, saying they had immediately requested help from Arcta, but nothing had happened so far, which she found very strange. Hughes asked Eden a question, inquiring if the rumors he had heard before about the Red Hollow being an organization affiliated with Ivan were still valid. Eden denied this belief, explaining that he had thought so at first, but the current circumstances indicated they were acting completely independently. After a moment of silent thought from Hughes, the latter announced that he had finished his work and would be leaving, bidding Eden farewell. Militang suddenly stood up, objecting to him leaving this way, and commented that Hughes always says what he wants, and then simply leaves. Then Eden told her they had to leave as well. Militang was surprised by his words, pointing out that they had met after a long time and should at least have lunch together. Eden apologized, justifying it by saying his cousin Anne was very shy around strangers. After everyone had left, Militang was left alone wondering why she was by herself. Outside, Eden thanked Anne for enduring the previous situation, thanks to which they were able to get some results. Anne told him she was hungry, so he suggested they hurry to eat some delicious food. But Anne interrupted him by asking about the Red Hollow organization that everyone was making a fuss about. Eden replied that he would explain it to her as they walked, clarifying that it concerned them as alchemists. Meanwhile, Militang was in her office trying to convince herself that she wasn't sad or lonely, that everyone was busy with their work, and that it didn't bother her at all. Her thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of the phone, and she answered as Deputy Commander Militang of the Archer Knights. After listening to the caller, she calmly told him she was coming immediately. Isabel returned and was very impressed by the beauty of the city. Eden and Anne arrived at Colden Square, where Isabel was surprised by the strange sights around her, wondering about an old-fashioned car and a bear distributing balloons to a little girl. Eden began to explain to Anne that the Red Hollow organization could be considered traitors, and that they were officially classified as an anti-alchemist organization. He clarified that they were more accurately alchemists who advocated for the liberation of the ether. They had suddenly appeared out of nowhere and raised the issue of alchemists using their own lives as a driving force for alchemy, demanding that the ether be distributed to all alchemists so they could use alchemy without restriction. But Eden added that if this happened, it would inevitably lead to the collapse of the floating city of Arcta, which is maintained by the ether, and one couldn't imagine the problems that might arise after that. Anne commented sarcastically that it was just an internal conflict, that they were acting arrogantly, and reminded him that he had come all this way to stop it. An ice cream cart caught Isabel's attention, and she addressed Eden saying, "Hey, yellow monkey, shall we go get one?" Eden commented that seeing Isabel so captivated reminded her of the past, but as Anne was about to eat the ice cream, someone bumped into her, causing it to fall to the ground. The young man who bumped into her apologized, but he suddenly recognized Eden. The young man called Eden by his name, and Eden recognized him too, as it was Owen Arbin, the salamander alchemist. Owen expressed his happiness at meeting him and told him he had been looking for him. Owen mentioned he had just arrived and concluded that as long as Eden was here, Charlotte must be with him too. At that moment, Isabel looked at the spilled ice cream on the ground, then told Anne in a sharp tone that that scoundrel must die, and asked her to give the order. When Eden saw Owen talking about Charlotte, he remembered for a moment that she had a scary crush on him. Suddenly Charlotte appeared beside him, wondering about the identity of the lady standing next to him, and Eden noticed that Charlotte had just caused Isabel to drop the first ice cream she had ever had in her life. Suddenly, an idea struck Eden, and he took out a small vial from which he released a blue, slimy creature called Baby Sticky. Charlotte screamed with joy at the sight of Baby Sticky, welcomed it warmly, and asked if it had been well all this time. Eden told Charlotte that he had received some help this time, and that the day he would need her help had indeed come, just as she had predicted. Charlotte replied that she had told him so, and that if he had listened to her, he wouldn't have faced any problems. Eden thought to himself that she hadn't changed at all. Meanwhile, Owen suggested a solution to the situation, where he would quickly eat his ice cream, and then intentionally drop it on the ground. This way, they would both be in the same frustrating situation, and it would be fine. Owen considered himself a genius, describing his solution as peaceful for everyone, but Anne quietly told Isabel that she would allow her one hit. Immediately after, Isabel delivered a powerful punch to Owen that knocked him to the ground, screaming in pain. Owen wondered why, and Isabel told him he was a stupid monkey who had crossed the line, and that those who do so get a punch, warning him never to insult ice cream again. Charlotte commented that she agreed with Owen being an idiot, but she could never agree with a stupid bear being strong only when beside Eden, and here her identity was revealed. The Oracle Alchemist, Charlotte Catherine. Isabel was surprised to be called a stupid bear, but Charlotte insisted it was ridiculous for someone who seemed so inferior to her to exist, and asked Eden if he agreed. Suddenly, it seemed Isabel understood the situation. She grabbed Eden's hands, declaring that she had no intention of handing over her precious subordinate to a rude vixen. Charlotte was shocked by her words, wondering what yellow monkey and precious subordinate she was talking about. Charlotte grabbed Eden's head, demanding an explanation for the ridiculous lie she had just heard, but Eden told her the story was a bit complicated. Anne sighed and decided to ignore Charlotte, suggesting to Eden that they go eat. Anne commented sarcastically on how stupid the people around Eden were, and Isabel agreed, then invited Eden to go with them, calling him Yellow Monkey. Eden suggested they all go and he would explain on the way. He asked Charlotte if she had eaten lunch, and she said no, confirming she had a lot to say and that he had to tell her everything honestly. In the background, Owen lay on the ground, begging them to take him with them. Later in a restaurant, Charlotte complained to Eden that it wasn't fair for him to play such childish games while she didn't, but Eden told her not to be jealous of a mere childish game. At that moment, Isabel, who was hugging Eden, wondered about the strange conversations they were having while she was in the bathroom. Charlotte shouted at Isabel that she should be grateful for Eden's kindness, but Isabel retorted not to be ridiculous, as she was the one with generosity. Then she declared, as her highest-ranking senior, that she completely opposed her. The argument between Charlotte and Isabel escalated into a fistfight, as Charlotte questioned Isabel's identity for speaking in such a manner, while Isabel insisted that she was the senior. Eden shouted for them to stop and sought help from Owen. Anne asked Eden if this scene seemed harmonious to him, and when he agreed, Anne called him a stupid monkey. Later, Eden asked Owen if he had spent a week in this place. Owen confirmed this, explaining that he came because of information linking the recent explosion to the Red Hollow organization. Charlotte added that she joined the special investigation team because Eden always acts first in such cases. She had thought that Eden might come as well. Then she began to complain that Eden often takes on matters outside of official requests, only appears for work related to this incident, and disappears completely unless he is needed. Owen sighed, saying that if it weren't for the sage Grace, Eden would have been fired from his job by now, which made Eden feel like he had taken a devastating blow. After that, Owen suggested a friendly duel with Eden, expressing his confidence in winning this time. Eden flatly refused his request, explaining that they had other things to do after eating. Meanwhile, the fight between Charlotte and Isabel continued, and Eden thought that if he stayed with them any longer, no one knew what might happen. As Eden and his group were about to leave, Owen asked them where they were going and if they could come along, but Anne coldly refused his request. Eden tried to tempt Owen by suggesting dessert. Owen brightened up at the idea, but Isabel shouted that he couldn't come, and Anne confirmed the refusal again. This sparked an argument between Anne and Isabel, with Anne saying that bears should be content with eating meat, to which Isabel retorted that one must eat a balanced diet to grow taller, and then sarcastically asked Anne if she was jealous just because she was prettier than her. Owen exploded in anger, wondering why everyone liked a worthless person like Eden, and if there was something wrong with their eyes. Eden got angry and asked Owen why he was bringing that up again, reminding him that he had taken care of the matter in the forest. Isabel grabbed Eden by the neck, reminding the yellow monkey not to talk back to his mistress Anne. Charlotte intervened and grabbed Isabel, shouting at the savage and asking how she dared to threaten Eden. Anne got angry and ordered the human Charlotte not to touch Isabel. Charlotte got into a fight with Anne and Isabel. Owen saw what was happening and commented to himself that it looked interesting, wondering if he should intervene. The situation devolved into a violent and chaotic group brawl. Elsewhere, two people were watching the city from a high place while drinking coffee. One commented that he never imagined he would be drinking coffee in a place like this, describing the view as stunning. The other expressed his jealousy, wishing he could enjoy this view every time. The first one noticed that the main character had arrived and asked if they should start now. The other replied no, considering it was still too early, and that fireworks are most beautiful when launched at night. He then announced that on that night, a fantastical fireworks show would begin. Back at the restaurant, the entire group was kicked out, with the owner shouting at them never to return. Isabel promised him that she would remember what he did. Afterward, they all walked in awkward silence. Owen sighed, saying he couldn't do anything in this atmosphere, and all he wanted was for the day to pass peacefully. Eden grabbed Owen's face and told him not to say that. Charlotte announced that, to improve her mood, she would start a shopping storm, which surprised Anne. Everyone embarked on a massive shopping spree as Owen tried to stop them, shouting that they had already spent 6 out of 7 days shopping, and that any more of it could be considered a crime. Isabel interrupted him with her innocent question, asking if shopping was something to eat, which angered Charlotte, who told her to stop joking because she was in a very bad mood. Anne explained to the stunned Charlotte that Isabel wasn't lying and that she had never tried shopping before in her life, something Charlotte found impossible. At first, Charlotte thought Isabel was using a cheap trick to look pitiful, but she soon realized she was wrong, as it was impossible for the innocent expression on Isabel's face to be a lie. At that point, Charlotte decided to take it upon herself to guide Anne and Isabel, telling them to follow her to show them how much of life they had missed. Owen noticed their number had grown to 3, and Eden realized it too. The conclusion was for Owen to issue an order to summon the knights. Charlotte began their educational tour at a perfume shop, explaining to them that perfume is a fashion accessory that gives the body a pleasant scent. She taught them the common way to apply perfume by gently rubbing the wrists together after spraying, then dabbing a little behind the ears. The girls seemed very happy trying the different perfumes, with Isabel expressing her desire to try other scents, while Anne wondered if she should try a global brand, and Charlotte chose her favorite perfume. Meanwhile, Owen and Eden sat in a state of complete exhaustion, with Owen sadly wondering if they would spend another hour in this store, the 4th one they had entered, feeling that they still had a long way to go. They then moved on to a clothing store, where Isabel expressed her admiration for a dress she saw, but Anne commented that its design was beautiful, but it lacked a bold color to make it stand out. Charlotte agreed, confirming that strong colors suited Isabel. Owen's exhaustion reached its peak, and he screamed, wondering when this torment would end, realizing that with 3 people interested in shopping, it would take 3 times as long. As the sun set, Charlotte gave Isabel a gift, saying it would suit her, and asked for her opinion. The gift was a red cloak with a hood, which Isabel loved very much, commenting that it looked like the teddy bear doll they had seen earlier. Afterward, Isabel began to eagerly look for something that might suit Anne. While the girls were enjoying themselves, Eden and Owen walked silently behind them, loaded with shopping bags. Suddenly, Eden asked Owen why he hadn't inquired about Anne and Isabel, as he thought he would be curious to know their story. Owen replied that he hadn't heard anything about them but assumed Eden had a reason for not talking about it, and that the same applied to Charlotte. Owen added that Eden doesn't do anything without a reason, and even if he felt something was strange, he trusted him completely and knew he would tell him everything in due time. Their conversation was interrupted by the girls' voices suggesting they go for a parfait. Eden's excitement noticeably increased at the prospect of going, especially after remembering that the special parfait dish would be waiting for him. Later, a mysterious man spoke in a calm voice, noting that it was time to get back to work. The long shopping day finally ended, and everyone felt they had grown closer to each other. Charlotte asked the girls if they now understood the joy of shopping, and they answered with great enthusiasm, expressing their desire to repeat the experience and visit the stores they hadn't been able to explore. That night, Anne addressed Charlotte, expressing her opinion that she was the true ultimate alchemist, unlike that man who is all talk, referring to Eden, who was annoyed by this comment. Eden objected to her words, explaining that if the promises were kept, he too could become the ultimate alchemist, only to be met by a mysterious voice sarcastically asking if he was the one who would become the ultimate alchemist. Suddenly, a mysterious person appeared in front of Eden and touched him on the chest, causing Eden to lose his breath. The stranger grabbed the small creature on Eden's head, saying that a stray dog would laugh at his claim. Then the stranger told Eden not to get full of himself, and that he would take his partner for a while before leaping away. Anne looked angrily at the man as he moved away and called him a scoundrel, then told Isabel they would follow him, and she immediately agreed. But when Eden tried to move, he felt it was difficult and wondered if it was because of alchemy. At that, Owen placed his hand on Eden's shoulder and asked him to wait while he went to chase the kidnapper. Anne objected, insisting that she would get Medini back as soon as possible. Eden tried to stop them and begged them to take him with them. Meanwhile, Charlotte ran worriedly to Eden to ask if he was okay, and checked to make sure he wasn't harmed. At that moment, a frightening explosion came from behind them. The scene was interrupted by a cry for help from someone running down the street, screaming for help from a ferocious monster chasing him. A strange little creature appeared. When someone touched it, it would greet them with the word, "Hello?" before turning into a ball of fire and exploding. The explosion caused a shockwave that stunned everyone, and Eden commented that they had finally appeared. This was followed by the appearance of large numbers of these explosive monsters throughout the city, causing panic among the people who began to scream and flee, warning each other that these creatures explode on impact. One of these creatures approached a child running with his mother and was about to explode on him before Eden intervened and saved the situation by slowing down time. Then a massive purple explosion occurred near the child and his mother. Eden shouted for Charlotte, ordering her to focus on rescuing people first, and she responded immediately. Charlotte used alchemy and poured a blue liquid on the ground, which quickly materialized into her creature, Sticky. Charlotte ordered Sticky to evacuate everyone, and the creature immediately began rescuing civilians by using its body to create slides and safe passages for them. Amidst the chaos, Owen appeared, surrounded by flames, known as the Salamander and Half-Dragon, and announced that he would take care of the rest. Afterward, Owen unleashed a massive fiery attack from his mouth, wiping out all the monsters in his path. Eden watched the scene from a distance and felt relieved that he hadn't arrived too late. After Owen had destroyed the monsters, Charlotte commented that it had been a really long time since the three of them had worked together, while she hugged Eden, who wondered if it had really been that long. But Owen quickly looked to the horizon, explaining that it wasn't over yet, and that it seemed the monsters hadn't only appeared in this location. Amidst the chaos that engulfed the city, a female knight was directing citizens to evacuate and head to the highest possible ground, with priority given to supporting the injured. She shouted at someone else named Alan, urging him to be careful and vigilant if he wanted to survive. And Alan replied that he was coming right away. Suddenly, one of the small monsters appeared in front of Alan. He pushed the woman he was carrying away from him at the last moment, so the explosion hit him alone. Alan fell to the ground, and his companion screamed his name in terror. Elsewhere, Isabel continued to chase the kidnapper, who thought to himself that she was more persistent than he had imagined. The kidnapper felt tired of running and decided it was time to disappear. But before he could, Isabel suddenly threw her sword at him and attacked, sarcastically asking if he hadn't heard her mistress order him to stop. The kidnapper sighed, realizing that as long as it involved that man, nothing would be ordinary. He then asked the two girls if they were also alchemists, which Anne flatly denied, ordering him to stop the nonsense and hand over Medini, or leave. The kidnapper replied that it was a pity, then used a technique called arrow lock to trap Medini inside a blue cube. He revealed his identity as the former alchemist of air, Isaac, and told them he couldn't recommend them for the Red Hollow, so their death here would be the cleanest option. Afterward, Isaac stomped his foot on the ground and flew into the air, launching an attack he called Arrow Fractal, which caused the ground beneath the two girls to shatter. Isabel was surprised by the distortion of the ground. Isabel asked Anne to wait a moment and that she would be right back after finishing her mission. Then she launched an attack on Isaac, delivering a powerful kick that he couldn't dodge. Isaac was amazed by her speed before Isabel attacked him again. Isabel used one of her skills to approach Isaac quickly. Isaac noticed the danger of the attack and activated an energy shield around himself. Suddenly, Isabel appeared, piercing through the shield, and told Isaac that if he was going to die, he should die gracefully. She then pierced Isaac's body, causing him to scream in pain. After that, Isaac directed the same arrow fractal attack towards the shocked Isabel. The attack hit Isabel hard and sent her flying, causing Anne to scream her name. Isabel got up, coughing, and reassured Anne that she was fine, expressing her embarrassment at showing this weak side, and insisting she would finish it quickly. Isabel threw a red rose into the air, and it transformed into a large sword, which astonished Isaac. Facing the sword, the injured Isaac used a technique called Stratus Gate to create a powerful barrier of compressed air around himself. He smiled confidently, thinking that even if Isabel was a monster, just touching this high-pressure barrier would cause her entire body to explode. After feeling he had bought some time, he began to consider his next move, wondering whether to prolong the fight, end it quickly, or simply choose the best option, which was to escape. But while he was busy thinking, Isabel's pink sword easily pierced his barrier, leaving him in a state of shock as he wondered about the nature of this weapon. Isabel approached him angrily, asking him how he could act so relaxed in front of her. Before Isabel could continue her attack, Isaac used the same arrow fractal technique on her sword, causing her to let go of it. Isabel did not give up. She used her physical strength to shatter the energy shield that surrounded him, which resulted in the destruction of Isabel's body. Isabel looked at Isaac and called him filthy scum, wondering how he dared to threaten Lady Anne. Isaac was surprised when Isabel managed to shatter the shield so easily. Isabel immediately launched a violent and rapid assault of punches and kicks on Isaac, who realized that things could go very wrong in this situation. Isabel's brutal attack continued, ending with a powerful kick that knocked Isaac to the ground as she vowed to make him regret it even in hell. Suddenly, Isaac began to scream and beg for mercy, saying he wanted to live, but he quickly revealed his trick with a cunning smile, and sarcastically asked Isabel if she really thought he would say that.